All right, welcome in, everybody. It's the Big Chief Show, hosted by yours truly, Fred Davis. Who am I? What is this show? What are we doing here? I'm glad you guys asked. So, look, brand new thing on YouTube we're doing. It's called Chief Studios, presented by one Mr. Taylor Bell. You can find him at eSim Studios as well. We decided, Taylor reached out to me a while back after we were doing the Ranting on a Roof. And said, look, man, and for anybody that doesn't know, Taylor is a longtime Chiefs fan as well, longtime Houston sports radio listener. That's how he and I came about. And so he said, look, let's do it. Let's do a Chiefs YouTube channel. He was doing one already, knows I do a little radio and, what have you here and there. And so I said, look, I've always wanted to do a Chiefs show. Again, being here in Houston, they kind of frown when you talk about the Chiefs on Houston sports radio, because when you've had a team as bad as the Texans have been for so long, of course, you could really say that ever since that Chiefs loss a few years back, that's kind of when the whole thing unraveled for the Houston Texans. And so that's what the Chiefs have done to some folks, man. They've shattered dreams in this 5-6 year stretch that they've been on here as the best team in the National Football League. And so that being said, it only made sense. Let's jump into the fray. I mean, look, there's a lot of options out there, especially now the Chiefs are the team in the National Football League. We'll get into that here in just a second, because what makes this Chiefs team and what makes this run that they're on right now, and let's not confuse things. Right now, the Chiefs are the best team in the National Football League. They are on a dynastic run. They've been to 5 straight AFC championships, and a lot of this information I'm giving you guys already know. But to put this into context, let's think about this. When you look at the history of the National Football League, there's always been an underlying team that has been head and shoulders above everybody else, right? You've had, whether it was the Pittsburgh Steelers back in the day, whether it was the Dallas Cowboys, who you could argue had kind of two different runs. Obviously, that 90s era Dallas Cowboys team was something exceptional. And obviously, you had the San Francisco 49ers, who were incredible as well. And so then we had the New England Patriots, who, let's call it what it was. The New England Patriots prior to 2001, 2002 were just a middling NFL franchise, right? Yeah, they'd been to a couple of Super Bowls prior to that. What was it? 96 when they lost to the Green Bay Packers. And then, of course, back in 86, what it was, when they got blasted by the Chicago Bears. But this was a team that, again, was not looked at in the pantheon of NFL teams. Tom Brady comes along, changes the entire narrative. And for the last 20 years, they were pretty much the standard of the National Football League. And when you've got a guy like a Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, that's what's going to happen, right? Fast forward to where we are today, and now the Kansas City Chiefs have taken that mantle, and they are now that team, right? They are now that dynastic team. They are now the team that the NFL has decided, and rightfully so, when you've got Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and a guy like an Andy Reid, who are now the creme de la creme of the National Football League. And the scary part, if you're the National Football League, or if you're a fan of any other team not named the Kansas City Chiefs, is it ain't going to slow down anytime soon, right? I mean, let's call it what it is. And for anybody that's watched the Netflix series Quarterback, which might as well have been called, Patrick Mahomes and the Pips, although I will say we did get a better impression of one Mr. Kirk Cousins. I will say this about Kirk, and we'll go ahead and table this conversation. Kirk Cousins is one of those guys who, if you're a National Football League fan, you like him as a person. You like him to be the face of your organization. He's a good dude. He's maybe one of the nicest guys from a professional athlete standpoint that any of us have ever seen. But is he going to win you a Super Bowl? No, he's not. And I think the one thing that the quarterback series really illustrated to me was guys like Patrick Mahomes are just different. We can't say enough about the job that Brett Veach has done. We can't say enough about what Andy Reid has done, how that marriage has worked. And I said this a while back, a few years ago, when what makes Mahomes and Andy Reid so special. Look, we already knew Andy Reid was a guru when it came to all things offensive football, but you look at what he's been able to do with guys like Donovan McNabb, guys like Foles, what he was able to do with Alex Smith, for crying out loud, right? I mean, he was able to get the best out of these guys, but I think we can all agree that these guys are not Patrick Mahomes. And so when you've got a guy that can pretty much make every single throw that you have in your offensive playbook, especially when you have an expansive playbook like Andy Reid has, it makes for really exciting football, and it makes for the best quarterback in the National Football League. And it doesn't hurt that you've got a guy in Patrick Mahomes who look, say what you want about Brittany Mahomes, but having that stability at home, and I don't know that it gets talked about enough, and whether you like Brittany Mahomes, whether you think she's obnoxious, whatever, I don't care one way or the other, all right? There's something to be said for that, all right? Because, look, how'd that work out for Deshaun Watson? How's that worked out for Deshaun Watson, who I was a big fan of the Chiefs going after Deshaun Watson when they both came out in 2017. Obviously, look, it worked out the way it was supposed to with the Kansas City Chiefs and getting Patrick Mahomes. But again, I can't say enough about having that stability at home. And oh, by the way, it never hurts when your dad's a professional athlete as well. You grew up in professional locker rooms. And I think that's another story that doesn't get told enough is the impact of Patrick Mahomes Sr. and what he's been able to do for Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback. So, what are we going to do on the Big Chief Show? Look, we're going to be taking you all throughout the course of the season. We're going to do a post-game show as well. Taylor's going to do in-game stuff as well when the season gets going. So we're excited about that. We want to be your destination for all things Chiefs. Look, we know we're not going to get everybody. We know that there's a lot of folks out there. We know there's a lot of different Chief shows and there's a lot of information. It's the internet, folks. There's a lot out there. So we just want to be the best we can possibly be, giving you Chiefs news. We're going to have plenty of interviews as well. I think that's one thing that doesn't get done enough. So we're going to be talking to Chiefs past and present, as well as other NFL players, and to get their thoughts on not just Kansas City Chiefs, but that's all NFL stuff as well. Because again, there's a lot going on this year, and let's call it what it is. I mean, look, the Chiefs are now this is now their second chance in the last, 4 years to repeat. And you've got as loaded an AFC as you've ever had. Rick Bucher notwithstanding for the ignoramus comments he made about how Joe Burrow can dethrone Patrick Mahomes, not going to happen. Look how that played out for our boy Josh Allen last year. And again, we're not saying that these guys aren't great quarterbacks because we know they all are. But I think the Patrick Mahomes slander, when you're talking about a guy who's already won 2 MVPs, 2 Super Bowls, 2 Super Bowl MVPs. I mean, what more, look, Burrow, Josh Allen, obviously having Aaron Rodgers in the AFC is going to make a big difference as well. I'm excited to see what these New York Jets do as well. But again, when you've got a well-oiled machine like the Kansas City Chiefs do, and you saw last year when everybody thought the offense was going to take a step back, and all you did was you put up bigger numbers last year than you did without Tyreek Hill. Now, of course, the question is this year, you lost Juju, you lost Mecole Hardman, which I think at the end of the day, losing Mecole Hardman really doesn't make that big of a difference. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think losing Juju makes that big of a difference. I think with what you've got, Mahomes is at that stage of his career now where he's entering into that Peyton Manning / Tom Brady where, look, just give him one really good dude and then just put some really good complementary pieces around him, and he's going to make things work. And we've already seen a lot of that. So a couple things we're going to get to as far as what training camp is concerned, things that we're going to be watching out for, as far as what kind of storylines. Obviously, the biggest storyline coming out of the Chiefs today is the fact that, and I don't know that this is a huge surprise when you get down to it, Chris Jones not showing up for training camp today. Apparently, Andy was a little surprised. He thought they were getting closer to some sort of a deal, and obviously, we knew going into this season that was something that was going to be talked about. Chris Jones going into the final year of a 4-year, $80 million deal. He wants that Aaron Donald money. But the problem is that can you give him Aaron Donald money? Aaron Donald makes $31 million a year. Look, I'm a Chris Jones fan, but if we're being honest with ourselves, do we really think that Chris Jones is worth $30 million? Do we think he's worth $25 to $30 million? And if you take him out of this defense, is it enough to drop that defense to where suddenly, you've always been kind of a middle of the pack defense, and now, how far does that drop you? Obviously, being able to get that pressure up the middle goes a long way, but we all know one thing about Chris Jones. If there is a knock on him, he does take plays off. He finally did get his first 2 postseason sacks, and they came at totally opportune times last year in the playoffs. But be careful what you wish for, Chris. Now, if they went full Patriot mode, and one thing we know the Patriots didn't do a lot of was when it came time to paying guys, they just didn't do it. All right. They just didn't do it. And guess what? As long as you kept Tom Brady, and of course, we all know he had a team friendly deal for the entire, he made sure that while he was paid not what the quarterback market was, and we've already seen Patrick do the same thing. I mean, look, Patrick's not the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, and that's okay because he's made it very clear he's all about winning championships, and you couldn't ask for more out of your franchise quarterback when he says stuff like that. But again, it's going to be real interesting to see how Brett Veach plays this thing out with Chris Jones. What kind of money does he get? Now, again, the salary cap's going to continue to go up. I know the Chiefs have less than $1 million right now, and Brett Veach and those guys are good at manipulating the numbers. Someone's going to get money turned into a signing bonus, what have you. I'm not really worried about the cap gymnastics of it because Brett Veach has done a really good job of it. I don't think we're going to be in New Orleans Saints territory anytime soon, but it just makes you wonder. This has really been the first real. I would say the Chris Jones factor to me is a bigger issue than Tyreek Hill, and I'll say, and it's because of this. You don't have when you lost Tyreek, you still got Pat, all right? Because Pat's still going to flip. He's still going to move the ball around, and you still had Travis Kelce, and you still had a revamped offensive line that was going to keep. Because look, as long as Pat's got time to throw, somebody's going to get open. He's going to make a play. The problem with losing Chris Jones, though, is that right now, and from what I saw from the day one notes of Chiefs training camp, was that you had Derek Nandi and Daniel Wise, who you signed to a futures deal right before the Super Bowl. Those were the guys that are playing. Those would be kind of like your first team starters right now if the season were to start this week. Okay. And no one's going to get either Daniel Wise and or Derek Nandi confused for being Chris Jones anytime soon. All right. They can't get to the passer like he can. They don't rush the quarterback. They don't stop the run when he wants to stop the run like he can. So, they're not commanding double teams in any way, shape, or form. And let's go ahead and dovetail that with the fact that you've got some pass rush questions right now. I think that's, and we'll get to what I think are the three biggest question marks going into training camp this year. And then I'll give you two, as those who've listened to me for any time, I like to throw a couple extra bonuses in there. But look, you lose pressure up the middle, you lose a guy that commands double teams, and you lose your best pass rusher. And then when you lose that trickle-down effect is, okay, is Karlaftis ready to make that next step this year? All right. I'm a Mike Dana guy, but he's kind of undersized for being a defensive end. I know he moves inside and outside as well, but is he ready to take that next step, right? So you're asking a lot of guys that are really going to have to step up if you lose a Chris Jones or if he decides that he's going to sit out for any amount of time. Now, look, my man's getting hit for 50 GUR every day that he doesn't show up. And look, I don't care who you are. 50 GUR is a lot, and that does add up. Now, I'm sure the Chiefs, like I said, they're going to figure something out. I just don't think it's in Chris's best interest. I don't see them trading him just for the simple fact that I just don't see the depth behind him. Will he take a team-friendly deal? I don't know. He's already 29 years old. But again, I think he's got a little more leverage than, say, what a Tyreek Hill did last year, simply because you just don't have the pieces to either A, backfill a Chris Jones, and he's your best pass rusher. And I don't know that your other pass rushers right now are ready to step up and fill that void on a full-time basis without a Chris Jones. And I know you got the rookie, the kid from K-State as well. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name just yet. We'll just call him Felix for now. Look, he didn't even run with the ones today. I was kind of a head scratcher for me when the Chiefs made that pick. Again, we're going to give Brett Veach the benefit of the doubt when it comes to those kind of picks. But again, you've got a very raw defensive end / pass rushing group. Charles Omenihu, again, good defensive end, but again, he's not a pass rusher, so to speak. So right now, I think the Chiefs' biggest question mark, you got a couple, right? Biggest one being Chris Jones, but position group, Chris Jones notwithstanding, is obviously the wide receiver room, all right? And you've got wide receivers for days. I really wasn't that bummed out that you didn't get DeAndre Hopkins. I didn't think that he was that serious about coming to Kansas City. Now, apparently he was, the Chiefs and him stayed in contact all the way up until the draft. And even afterwards, after the draft, and of course, OBJ kind of ruined that for everybody when he got his $18 million deal from the Baltimore Ravens. We'll see how that plays out. We'll talk about that down the line. But I still think this offensive group is going to be pretty dadgum good. The question mark is this. You don't have a true bona fide number one wide receiver. Look, I'm a Kadarius Toney guy. I like Kadarius Toney, but the biggest question mark with Kadarius Toney right now is, can he stay healthy? I'm not sure about that. He hasn't shown that he can do it yet. Hell, he didn't do it last year with the Chiefs, all right? Look, did he have some huge moments? Yes, and that's what gets you excited about a Kadarius Toney, is because when he did make plays, they were spectacular. I mean, the dude's a freak show of a freak show for a reason, all right? But again, the number one ability in the NFL is durability, and I'm just not convinced that our boy Kadarius Toney can last for 17 games. So that remains to be seen. I do think Sky Moore is poised for a breakout season. Rashee Rice, I don't know. Rookie wide receivers. Now, again, you don't need him to be the man. Can he be that third or fourth guy? Sky Moore struggled at times last year. And, of course, he's going to be our backup punt returner again this year from what it looks like. Lot to be played out there. I'm just not sure what you're going to get out of Rashee Rice. We'll see that as training camp wears on and as the season wears on. He's a big-bodied wide receiver, though, so you do have to feel good about that. You've also got Richie James, who apparently has played well so far through one day of training camp, made some big plays in 7-on-7, so guys are excited about him. And he had his best year as a pro last year, coming off that last season with the Giants. I think he had, 50 catches for 500 and some odd yards last year, and that was with the Giants and Danny Dimes, who we know is no Patrick Mahomes. Then you throw in our boy Valdez-Scantling. He is what he is, all right? I don't think you're going to get any more out of him. He's in that 700 to 900-yard range, all right? He's going to make some good plays, and he's also going to make some plays where you're just screaming at the television because he alligator arms something. I mean, he's a slot, or excuse me, he's a deep guy, all right? I mean, that's what Valdez-Scantling does, and he does it really well. He'll make some great plays, and he'll make other plays, like you said, where he drops it, and you're just like, okay, that's what you get out of number 11. The guy for me that I'm keeping tabs on that I think could be the breakout / hidden gem, whatever you want to call it, is Justin Ross, number 8. I am extremely excited about what Justin Ross brings to the table. Hurt last year. I mean, this was a kid who, if he could have come out his freshman or sophomore year out of Clemson, would have been a first or second round pick. He's a big-bodied kid. Again, been banged up a little bit. You do worry about that. But from all indications, from what you've seen, and of course, you take IG videos with a grain of salt because everybody looks good in an IG video. The kid looks like he's in great shape. The Chiefs were raving about him last year before he got put on the IR. All indications are that this kid is going to make this roster. Now, again, I don't know that he's much of a special teams guy, but again, if he's a guy that big-body dude, knows how to play the wide receiver position, very fluid, somebody that has got, and again, Patrick brought him to all his little, makeshift camp / workout sessions or whatever. So you got to feel good about that. And again, if 15 likes him, then that's all I need to know. So Justin Ross is that guy who I think, the Chiefs might go. We know about running back by committee. Look, your number one receiver is Travis Kelce. All right. I mean, let's make no bones about it. As long as 87's on the roster and healthy, he's going to be the number one guy. Wide receiver, again, I think it's going to be just a committee approach this year. I think between Sky Moore, Valdez-Scantling, maybe Richie James in the mix, a Justin Ross type, and Rashee Rice. I mean, hell, that's five guys right off the bat right there. So again, you've got a crowded wide receiver room. A couple of those guys are going to make it to the practice squad. Maybe they get picked up by another football team. And it's hard, you don't know what Brett Veach has got up his sleeve. A lot of this is going to depend on what guys look like in training camp. Our boy Veach is never shy of making a move, whether before season, in season, or whatever. So again, if guys are underperforming, don't be surprised if he goes ahead and makes a move, especially if they free up some cap space by getting a deal done with Chris Jones. I think ultimately, I think it's going to be much ado about nothing when it comes to Chris Jones. A deal's going to get made. All right, you're not going to get rid of Chris Jones. I would be stunned if Chris Jones is in camp in the next week if a deal doesn't get done. I guess the question is going to be, what kind of money is he going to get? That's going to be the bottom line when it's all said and done. So we're going to be keeping an eye on the wide receiver room. We talked about the pass rush. To me, I think that might be the biggest concern. And I'm going to tell you right now, even with Chris Jones, let's just say Chris Jones gets signed. Let's say everything's hunky-dory. We're back in the mix. All right, you got him. You got Nandi. You got Daniel Wise backing him up. You're feeling good about that. But again, I'm still concerned a little bit about the pass rush. Again, Frank Clark, it's not like you lost a lot out of him, but you lost some. I mean, guys liked him in the locker room. You lost a guy like a Carlos Dunlap, who, even though he only had 4 sacks last year, again, another positive guy in the locker room. From what I've read this year and what I read this offseason was that he was a huge part of helping George Karlaftis along, right? And so I think Karlaftis is really, if we're looking at Chiefs this year that really need to make that next move, and who's going to be that guy on this defensive, on that defensive side of the ball, number 56, George Karlaftis. Is he going to be that guy that really takes a huge step in his development, in his production in year 2? Two other things that I'm really intrigued about. Travis Kelce is going to be 34 in October. All right. Now, 7 straight seasons of 1,000 yards. So we know my man. I mean, look, he's cemented himself as the best, one of the 3 best tight ends of all time. So we're not worried about that. But I guess my question is, are we worried about slowing down? Are we worried about, who's next up? That's my own. It's a minor concern. It's nothing that I think is pressing. But God forbid if something happened to Travis Kelce, if for whatever reason he gets hurt or something happened to him, Jody Fortson can't stay healthy. Blake Bell is a blocking back. And Noah Gray has been in this no man's land of he's good for a catch every 2 or 3 games, but he really hasn't had that one breakout performance yet. And if anybody was slated, if anybody's going to do it. Now, look, Noah Gray's not anywhere near the size of a Travis Kelce. I mean, good. He's an agile guy. He's shifty and what have you. But we just haven't seen, and again, let's not, trying to say that he's going to be the next Travis Kelce, trying to say anybody's going to be the next Travis Kelce is a tough hill to climb. But I'd like to see more out of Noah Gray. If there's anybody that I've got, if I'm looking at George Karlaftis on the defensive line, I'm looking at Noah Gray in the tight end room. All right, because again, we already know we're going to be watching. All eyes are going to be on the wide receiver room, but the tight end room, I want to see somebody step up, not named Travis Kelce, in the tight end room on a week-to-week consistent basis. I'd love for it to be Jody Fortson. Like I said, he's money in the red zone. Everywhere else, he gets hurt too much, and I think if the offense relied on him, then we'd see him out there a lot more. So that's my only concern. Again, Blake Bell's good at what he does. Like I said, the fact that I don't believe they're going to have a fullback this year. He's good at block. He's good at he does his blocking well. He's good for a clutch catch from time to time. And since our boy doesn't do quarterback sneaks anymore, Blake Bell's as good as anybody when it comes time to quarterback sneaking it. So, and then finally, the last thing that we're going to keep an eye on during training camp is much has been made, and I think in some ways almost unfairly, the role of Eric Bieniemy in the Chiefs offense. Now, do I expect there to be a drop-off this year in the offense? No, not really. But I am curious to see what the offense does do without Eric Bieniemy. Now, look, do we think he called plays? Do we know how much input he actually had? No, we don't. All right. Some may say none. Some may say it was all Andy Reid, and that, at the end of the day, and if we looked at a lot of what went down last season, who did Pat Mahomes go to more often than not after a play was over, or after a series was over, or after they went 3 and out? It wasn't to Eric Bieniemy. It was often to Matt Nagy, who's now the offensive coordinator, which was not a big surprise to anybody. But we'll see. And I'm pulling for EB. I hope he does very well in Washington. Now that a lot of that filth is removed from the Washington football team, now that they've been able to get new ownership and take care of business there, I'll be real curious to see how EB does, and I'm pulling for him, and I hope he does well. Ultimately, though, it's going to come down to the offensive room. I'm not really too worried about the offensive line. I think they're going to be in really good shape, especially now you got guys that have gotten another year older in the system. I think we're going to be just fine at the tackle position as well. And look, I think it's going to come down to this year, who's going to step up in that wide receiver room? And again, and like I said, just my own bit here, who's going to be that number 2 tight end after Travis Kelce? I hope it's Noah Gray. I would love to see it. Hell, I'd love to see it. Look, I don't care who it is. If it's Jody Fortson, if he can stay healthy, if Noah Gray takes that next step, so we'll see. But we're going to keep an eye on all of that this training camp. So last but certainly not least, look, as we go into the next few weeks of the Big Chiefs show, we're going to have some guests on, Chiefs past and present, because who better to get insight from than guys that played for the Chiefs and kind of getting their thoughts on what they see with this Kansas City Chiefs team. What was the difference? Or, look, we kind of know the difference, but, how surprised are they that the Chiefs have become kind of the it team in the National Football League? So we've got a couple folks that we're working on right now. And of course, as this thing rolls along, we'll let you guys know as well. Be sure to follow Chief Studios on YouTube. Also follow my man Taylor over at eSim Studios as well. Don't forget, we're going to have a post-game show. We'll also have in-game commenting that Taylor's going to be taking care of throughout the season as well. So look, first show in the books. This was more of just an introductory. Look, it's training camp right now. It's all very new. It's all, where everybody's kind of getting back into the swing of things. Can the Chiefs repeat? All right. And can this dynastic run continue? And I think the Chiefs are going to face their biggest test that they've ever faced so far. When you look at what the Chiefs are up against this year, all right, with some of the question marks they've got on the offensive side of the ball, whether or not our boy Chris Jones comes back, I'm just going to go ahead and put a pin in it right now and say, yes, he will. They're going to be fine. Spags with another year in this defense, I think they're going to be fine. The question always remains staying healthy, the schedule, and then, of course, let's look inside the AFC West as well. You've got a Charger team that, look, Brandon Staley's coaching for his job. Denver is going to be, and look, it was a debacle what went down in Denver last year, and I understand that everybody was talking about how loaded the AFC West was. I would almost argue that the AFC West this year is going to be, well, look, it'd be impossible for it to be worse than last year. But the AFC West, for as ballyhooed as it was going into last season, I mean, how you had people pick the Chiefs wouldn't even win the AFC West last year. No one's talking about it this year. AFC West is going to be a nasty division in 2023. All right. Denver's going to be better just by the simple fact that Sean Payton's there. All right. Nathaniel Hackett had no business being a head coach. He was way in over his head. You wait and see. I expect Denver to be better. I expect to see Russell Wilson play better this year. I'm real curious to see what we're going to see out of the Las Vegas Raiders this year. And like we said, the Chargers, Staley's playing for his job this year. He's coaching for his job this year. So you're going to see a much better AFC West than you saw just out of, and you know, Josh, I mean, look, the jury's still out on Josh McDaniels. Shout out to my boy, Michael Babbo. I know he's concerned about what he's seeing out of his Las Vegas Raiders so far, and I don't blame him. You know, is Garoppolo a better quarterback than Derek Carr? I don't know. You could argue they're the same guy in a lot of ways. The one thing you do know, though, is that Garoppolo knows that offense inside and out. You still got Devontae Adams. You've got a better offensive line. You don't have Josh Jacobs. So it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing. And, of course, if they struggle again this year, I think we can all say Josh McDaniels probably just needs to go back to being an offensive coordinator. A couple comments here. Our boy G. Raffi. Kadarius Toney is going to be fine by the start of the season. Justin Ross is going to be Himothy. And then Michael Travis is the second oldest tight end in the league. He's one of the greatest, but he's also one of the oldest. Great point as well. Also, too, Kadarius Toney, hurt first day of camp. What does that say about offseason training, the overall health of the team? Does it hurt repeat chances to have these early injuries? Look, I'll say this. I mean, does anybody? I mean, look, before I even mentioned before I even saw this, that was like I said. I mean, that answers my question right there. Kadarius Toney can't stay healthy. All right, and that Kadarius Toney may go down as one of those guys that we say to ourselves when it's all said and done, woulda, coulda, shoulda. Man, I mean, look, we've all watched enough football to say, man, if that dude could have just stayed healthy, when he was healthy, he was good, but he just could never stay on the field. And I'm starting to think that maybe Kadarius Toney might end up being that guy. Some dudes just aren't built for it. All right, some guys just aren't built for it. I would hate to think that Kadarius Toney is one of them. Does losing Kadarius Toney change the outlook of this offense? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think you've got enough pieces on this offense that you're going to be just fine. And again, as we know with Brett Veach, he's not afraid to make a move when he needs to. So definitely not great news coming out of training camp that he's hurt the first day, but again, not the most surprising news that he's hurt at the end of the day. I think the one thing we all know, as long as number 15 is healthy, hey, anything is possible. So once again, look, give us a follow at @TheFreddieD on Instagram as well as Twitter, at eSim Studios, at Chief Studios as well. Go follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to the page. Like I said, we're just getting started. This thing's going to keep rolling along as the season goes on, and we'll have, you know, the bells and whistles and all that kind of stuff. And we've got some guests lined up. My boy Henry Thomas is going to stop by. I'll even get my boy Ted Johnson to come on the show. And we've got, like I said, we've got some Chiefs that we're efforting on right now to get on the program that we're excited about. So we always welcome your comments as well. Give us a shout if there's anybody you want to see. And, of course, conversation, feedback is always welcome because that's what makes this so great. So first show in the books. We thank you guys so much for being a part of it. Like I said, just want to introduce who we are, the Big Chief Show. Just another show talking all Kansas City Chiefs. And, you know, look, as we get this thing rocking and rolling, we're going to have some fun and, you know, ultimately talk some Kansas City Chiefs and get your feedback as well as the Chiefs try to be the first team in 20 years to go back-to-back Super Bowl champions. You guys have been great. We'll see you next week. Be safe. Be cool. Take care.